When I was little, I had big dreams. I would stare at the clouds and wonder what I would become. My imagination ran wild. One day, a man came promising a better life far away. Now that I'm big, my only dreams are of when I was little, when I was free.
There is an estimated 27 million adults and 13 million children who are forced into labor, including sexual exploitation. 161 countries are reported to have been infected by human trafficking. An estimated 30,000 victims of human trafficking die each year. Human trafficking is estimated to have profit from $9 billion to an astonishing $31.6 billion. Human trafficking is a direct violation of every human's right to life, and sadly there is little that we as non-victims are doing to help put an end to this atrocity. It not only deprives humans from their human rights and freedom, but it is a global health risk and only fuels the growth of organized crimes. Exploitation also includes forcing victims into prostitution or other forms of sexual exploitation, forced labor or services, slavery, and even sometimes the removal of organs. For children exploitation, it also includes recruitment of soldiers, illicit international adoptions, and trafficking for early marriages. The sad reality of human trafficking is that it is invisible to many people and often ignored because of not enough self-awareness and coverage done by the media. Over half of the traffickers, 52% of them, are male, and as a male, they have tendency to display fear into the victims, especially because most of the victims are women and children. There has always been a sexual difference between men and women, and it has been exploited and reproduced that male is the superior sex. In addition to the gender differences, because of the different sexual organs, most women and girls are sold into the sex industry, while men and boys are usually used for forced labor at a machine factory or on farm labors. In the end, however, women are the majority of the victims because of their sex. Women's sexuality is often viewed as a social resource, and because of this, trafficking is only becoming bigger and bigger. A girl's virginity is held highly in the trafficking industry and sells for a lot of money. Traffickers, knowing this, go out and buy girls as young as 5 years old and sell them on the market, and usually are bought for a good price. All of us in this class have the privilege to be where we are, and most of the time we are oblivious to what is going on beyond the privilege walls that are put up for us for our own safety and protection. This invisible privilege of not being sold into the sex industry at a young age is given to us, and unfortunately for these victims of human trafficking, all they see of their life is a vicious cycle of being sold, bought, used, and recycled. According to the UN GIFT, it is said that 54% of the cases, the recruiter was a stranger to the victim, while 46% knew the victim. And in some cases, traffickers send out broken-in girls or girls who are loyal to their so-called master to recruit younger girls into the sex trade. The money for the trafficking business is fast and easy, and most of the times, if not all, traffickers earn back the money that they bought the girl for and can earn up to 20 times as much as what she was bought for. A majority of the victims come from places of low income and areas that are not well off. Because money is a big issue for many of these people living in impoverished areas, these times calls for desperate times and pushes more and more people to willingly sell their families and children into the trafficking business to keep themselves alive. Natural disasters that destroy a specific area and leave millions of people homeless and impoverished, making desperate victims more susceptible of being exploited by traffickers. Those who make up victims of human trafficking are often runaways who are easily apprehended and taken. Because many of the girls who are taken live in such impoverished towns, where law enforcement is not much help in finding these abducted children, these victims poof into thin air and are never heard from again. Countries where many victims come from are Belarus, the Republic of Moldova, the Russian Federation, Ukraine, Albania, Bulgaria, Lithuania, Romania, China, Thailand, and Nigeria, while Belgium, Germany, Greece, Israel, Italy, Japan, the Netherlands, Thailand, and yes, the United States are ranked very high as destination countries of trafficking victims. Many times, traffickers lure victims by promising them a better life somewhere else, but once the victims hand over their passports or identification papers, they fall capture to the traffickers, who only promise to give back the papers as long as they do as they are told. A routine fear is placed into the hearts of the victims, which scared them into not thinking about the possibility of escape. Many times, the victims are in foreign countries and are unable to communicate with others and completely isolated. After a girl is kidnapped, her nightmare has just only begun. It is quite normal to take these girls into a breaking house where they're continuously raped and beaten. This serves two purposes to the traffickers: to break them of their will, as well as force the fact that they are at the mercy of the traffickers, and to train them of how to have sex. The fact that they have designated houses for this shows the organizational aspects of this particular type of crime. After the breaking period, the accepted and docile ones are shipped to designated areas to work. Girls that remain hostile, uncooperative, and pose a danger to the operation can be kept to be broken in more or killed. The victims that can be used up to 15 or more times a day and keep living this horrible lifestyle until they grow too unhealthy for their bosses to use, and they are often thrown out on the streets or killed. In the streets, these victims experience malnourishment, disease, as well as mental and physical disease. Sometimes if the victims try to return home, they are rejected by their own family, and suicidal rate among the survivor victims of human trafficking is very high. Drug use is also very prevalent and used to keep the victims under control. Victims of human trafficking often suffer from a multitude of physical and psychological health problems. Women are specifically vulnerable to reproductive and other gender-specific health problems in trafficking situations because they have little or no access to reproductive health care. These problems include lack of access to birth control, constant rapes, forced abortions, and contraceptive use, lack of regular mammograms, and other health issues. Women in domestic servitude are subjected to rape and other physical abuse, while women in forced sex work suffer increased risk of sexually transmitted infections, including HIV and AIDS. Every year, thousands are trafficked across different countries for a variety of reasons, including sexual exploitation, bonded labor, organ transplantation, adoption, or coerced marriage. Human trafficking victims face physical risks such as drug and alcohol addiction, contracting STDs, sterility, miscarriages, vaginal and anal trauma, among others. Psychological effects include developing clinical depression, personality and dissociative disorders, suicidal tendencies, post-traumatic stress syndrome, and complex post-traumatic stress syndrome. To much of our dismay, human trafficking is a tricky issue when it comes down to cracking down on traffickers, because traffickers can move quickly and quietly, crossing borders and moving in and out of various countries. The government has difficulty in putting an end to this crime. Human trafficking is one of the fastest growing criminal enterprises because it holds relatively low risk with high profit potential. Criminal organizations are increasingly attracted to human trafficking because, unlike drugs, humans can be sold repeatedly. Traffickers profit from both general ignorance of human trafficking and stigma that stifles discussion of both issues. Increased awareness and understanding from both among victims and the general population is therefore crucial to combating human trafficking. In June 2007, the U.S. Congress established a day to remember human trafficking victims and raise national awareness, and on June 11, 2008, marked the first Human Trafficking Awareness Day in U.S. history. There are countless of awareness programs and various workshops that are set up to bring more attention to the issue, not only to the public, but to the government and traffickers themselves. In America, there are several steps that the government has taken in order to put an end to this crime against humanity. Congress has passed legislation for those who sexually prey on children can face as many as 30 years in prison. The Department of Health and Human Services is certifying trafficking victims so they may qualify for the same assistance available to refugees. The HHS, or the Department of Health and Human Services, is also running a major public awareness campaign to alert victims in the U.S. that help is available through the hotline number 888-3737-888. The Department of Defense has also implemented a zero tolerance against any actions by defense personnel that contribute to human trafficking and are instituting a service-wide mandatory training program. Departments of Labor and Homeland Security, the U.S. Agency for International Government, and other government agencies are executing action plans to combat human trafficking. The United States is also involving herself in international trafficking affairs, such as President Bush's speech to the United Nations General Assembly, where he raised the issue of human trafficking and asked the leaders of the world to work together to end it. The State Department is also working extensively with government on action plans for prevention, protection of the victims, and prosecution. Congress has strengthened the anti-trafficking legislation and contributed more than $82 million in funding last year for efforts abroad to end slavery. The United States is providing money around the world for rehabilitation and work training centers for victims and special housing shelters for victims, law enforcement training and legal reform assistance, information and awareness campaigns, voluntary repatriation for displaced victims, training for immigration officials, medical personnel, and social workers, combating sex tourism, and rescuing victims from slavery. What people all over the world can do is only bring more and more attention to this problem, and those who are buying the children and women must stop in order for the trafficking business to dry up. Ignorance stems from our own protection for ourselves, and once we stop overprotecting ourselves from the harsh reality and really truly see the problems that are occurring right under our noses, human trafficking is a crime under international law and under national legislation. Together, we can all combat this evil. The question is, who will stand up for it?